I was not prepared for the gorgeous sunrise that's happening, so I don't have a composition sorted. I'll take a look in a minute, but I'm not too hopeful that I'll find anything stunning. There's all that color. That color ends up selling a lot, doesn't it? I'm actually going to take a shot in this direction now because I'm just liking the really gentle blues and pinks over there. I've been watching a few bits and pieces about seascape photography, and everybody's in these videos is always talking about doing a pretty slow shutter speed, about a half a second kind of deal. I've already been wandering around a little bit, and I can give you the short notes, which are I found a lot of places that don't work. The water flow was not fast enough, so it was all just a bit flaccid and not really doing much. And I've found one spot here that I think is at least giving me, it's not, you know, possibly the most striking image in the world, but it's giving me the kind of water flow that I need so I can experiment a little bit. Got my camera kind of looking out at that right there. You can see the water coming up through there. And I'm just taking a bunch. I've got it on a half a second shutter speed. Some of the rocks there on the right side are a little bit reflective because the sun's, you know, well, you can kind of see it in frame there now. So I've got a bit of polarization going on to cut that down. Half a second, and taking a bunch. In the nature of you never do know when you're out taking a photograph, and it's always worth stopping to have a little look at something. I was on my way back to the car, and I found this little bit of seaweed, the one that's down in the sort of lower left of the frame-ish. So I lined it up. I had a little bit of polarization, and yeah, time will tell, but I think it might be my best shot of the day when all is said and done. Just goes to show you never do know. You come along, you have a plan, and then sometimes the one that you just kind of pick out of nowhere without really thinking too hard about it is the one that works out. My big learning from the day is, because in the end I think I shot this on 1/3 of a second for the ones that I liked, and that's my big takeaway, is that you know, half of a second, 1/3 of a second, full second, whatever it is, that it, even though it feels like it's so close and it's still kind of dragging your shutter, but it actually does make a difference in how the waves kind of blur. Maybe, hey, you know what, if you've got experience with this and you want to tell me what I'm doing wrong, happy for you to pop something in the comments below. But I'm gonna hop over to the computer and see what I can do with whatever I've gotten.
So I hope you all enjoyed that little bit of in the field footage. I'm back on the computer now and want to just take a moment to show you how I kind of completed one of these edits, and I've got kind of a extra special technique for this swirly water to give it some extra panache. We had the incredible sunrise. I'll show you at the end. I won't do the processing of this as a part of this video just because I don't want to get it too long, but I'll just show you what edits were done to this. If you're interested in that, stick around till the end of the video and check that out. This is the image that I'm going to do the processing of here in this video. I like this one a fair bit. Well, I think one of the things, I like the layout of it in general, with the seaweed here and this rock kind of pointing in, and then it just kind of all swirls around. The wave, that particular wave, came up higher than I was expecting. Thankfully, I was standing on a rock, so I didn't get swamped. Otherwise, I would have gotten swamped. And one of the things I like most about it is kind of in the detail. Down here, how some of that seaweed is absolutely pin sharp, but some of it is caught up in the movement as it's swishing and swirling. Just that combination of having some of the swirl and some of it actually still be tack sharp. So I'm going to go ahead and do this edit. If you notice any weird transitions through this video, I'm just getting over a cold. I've got this sort of lingering cough, so every now and again I need to break what I'm doing to do a cough, which obviously I'll cut those out. But you might hear it in my voice. So anyway, this is a virtual copy of that image that I have just reset. So let's dive in and take a look at kind of getting it a little bit closer to where I went in the end. So I'm going to, first of all, come over here to my color space, and I'm going to set my rendering. I'll do that first because it's also going to impact my tonality. For this one, just because of the nature of it, I'm going to come here to a color positive film, and I'm going to grab Velvia 50, which is going to be vibrant, contrasty, etc. So we will leave that like that. And coming up here to my white balance, I do want to impact that as well. You may have noticed the series of images. I've left them a little bit on the bluer side of things. I just liked the feeling of it, so I'm going to do that. Bring that down around 5300. Just kind of emphasizes the colors in the water that I like quite a bit. I am also just going to take this tint down a little closer to 0, if not on 0, in the ballpark of 0, shall we say. And then I'm going to come across to the light tab, and I want, this is obviously, if we look at the histogram here, a lot of lighter tones, and I want to keep that feeling about it. So as I'm editing it, I'm going to keep it quite bright. I was thinking recently, probably, and not that I'm, exceptionally trying to emulate their style, but James Popsis, who's a reasonably popular YouTuber, I'm guessing lots of you will know who he is. I was thinking the other day that I think he's influenced my eye for what I enjoy more than anybody else in recent times, which is an interesting thing. And a lot of the stuff that he does is quite bright, quite well brightened. So yeah, interesting thing. So anyway, again, I'm not trying to copy him exactly, but I just have noticed that tendency that I enjoy his work quite a bit. So I'm coming here to exposure, and even though this has got a lot of the tones, I'm going to try something here. A lot of the tones are already quite far up, but I think I might be able to do something with this without it blowing anything out straight away. So I'm going to raise that up, and then I'm going to come here, bring that down a little, and that down a little, to kind of stretch that out a bit. Maybe pop a little into the shadowy shadows there. So somewhere around there. For now. We'll see what that's like. And I know that's a little bit unusual. Putting up my exposure first, and then kind of manipulating these tones in this way, bringing the mid-tones down in that way. We'll see how we go. And in fact, I might even leave that about there. Okay, cool. Now before I go any further, let me straighten that horizon, because I think that's going to drive me crazy. Let me put on the horizon tool. Actually, first of all, let me just check what the auto will do. And I think that has not got it right. So let me put the crop on here so that I can clear. Does that look straight? No, that looks crooked as anything to me. So let's go ahead and do this the other way. So I'm going to come here and here. Once I've got that, I'm going to just zoom in, hold down my space bar so that I can move that, and then I'm going to look more fine-tunedly underneath there. Try to get it as precise as I can. This is a bit tricky to see there. I say I feel confident seeing it up to about there. So let's do that. And then let me zoom back out. Yes, I think that's quite reasonable, so we'll go ahead and stick with that. Just popping back to my light tab, and I'm going to do a wee trick that is, I've got a video if you need to do more than this, but I seem to recall that there is, can I find it? Oh yeah, there's a dust spot right there. I found it on my other image, so I knew it was there. It wasn't a super obvious one. So now with that found, I will just do that. Take that off. Oh, I do not like how that's gone. So this actually turns out to be a good point for interest. So when I first came in and grabbed the tool, my feathering was I forget, somewhere around here. It was reasonably low feathering, and so I'll bring that size up a touch again. There we go. And I clicked on it, and the result is quite noticeable in there. And so just something, a little food for thought, that lots of times you can get away with it a bit more if you, I'll just take that size down a bit now that I've got the feathering on. If you turn the feathering on, it's able to kind of blend into this. It's a lot less noticeable, especially in something super complex like this. So that's going to do the trick for me just fine. I'm going to press my escape key to get the tool shut down, and I will zoom back out. Now, the one thing to be careful of when you've just been using the clear view to take care of dust spots, and you zoom in and then you zoom back out, I don't know about you, but more than once I've looked at the image and it's been like your eyes just kind of get used to it, and you know something's not quite right, but then you forget the clear view is turned on. It makes a pretty big difference. And I am going to use some clear view, to be fair, just not on the global scale like this. I don't want it across the whole image. So I'll just go ahead and turn that off now that I've done that. I'm going to add a little bit of fine contrast into the picture, and that, I think, is probably about it in here for now. So let's jump across to the local adjustments, and this is going to be my sort of top tip, I guess, for things like this where you want to kind of bring out the swirls and the textures and whatnot. I'm going to just grab a control point. Let's put it there, pretty central. I'm just leaving it as it is, sort of 50% on each of Chroma and Luma, so it's going to kind of prefer and select water type areas that are similar. And I'm going to just come down here to clear view and add some of that here. And let's see how we go. Looking good. Going to add another one down here. Enlarge that. And add another one out here. Probably make this one a bit smaller. Maybe one more here. I don't think I put this on the original image, but I'll pop one down here as well, just to emphasize that. So let's just take a second and do a quick before and after, so you can see how much of an impact that's doing. It's doing some work in terms of raising the whites and adding contrast in there. It's also kind of boosting the colors a little bit, so that's really quite cool. I like that a lot. Now I'm going to also pop down here and just increase my vibrancy a little bit, maybe around here for that one. For now I'm going to do a little bit more in a second, but let's just sort of see how we go. I'm just going to pop out of my local adjustments for a minute. I'll just press the escape key, click on the color tab. I'm going to come down here to HSL. I think globally I can add a bit of vibrancy to this. Just taking a moment to look at the results, and I think that's probably pretty good. I'm going to maybe add some more locally as well, so I'll maybe leave that there for now. I'll pop back to the local adjustments. Scroll on back up. I'm going to just grab a graduated filter, and I'm going to drag a graduated filter down from the top, about like that. Bring that in a little bit, maybe like that. And I'm just going to check out the tones in the sky. Going to see what I can do. I want the sky to be quite bright, as it already is. But I'm just going to have a wee little tweak to make sure that it matches well with the image. I find lots of times when I'm decreasing the highlights, it can kind of dull and gray things out, so I often hit it, when I bring the highlights down, I hit it up with a little bit of midtones, which to me creates nicer tones. Just going to see with this, that's obviously too much. Yeah, no, I'm just going to leave that. I will maybe add just the tiniest amount of clear view to this layer. Oops, just turned it back down again. I was using my scroll wheel, but I hadn't clicked away from the interaction, so that's what happened there. Just going to hit it with a little bit of vibrancy. I'll just scroll up to the top and do a quick before and after, see how that's changed. See, it's just kind of brought those sky tones in. I've not over darkened the sky, but it's brought them just a little more in balance with the rest of the image. And now I'm going to add one more graduated filter, this time coming up from the bottom. Okay, with this one, the main thing I want to do is to come down here to my HSL and to my oranges, and I want to increase the saturation of my oranges just to give this stuff here especially a bit of a boost. And also there's some orange flecks through here, but then that's actually creating a little bit of a problem. So, but first let me just boost them. I'm going to widen this because it is in the lower half. It's going to boost things. Nice, maybe around there. And now the thing is that that's made this bit of orange and this bit of orange just a little bit too intense. So what I'm going to do is take a little bit of that away. I'm going to come to the top and grab my eraser brush. Come down here. I'm just looking over. It is on a decent size. The feathering and the flow and opacity. I'm probably going to down my flow around there. And I'm just looking at the size there. Maybe down that a little bit too. And I'm just going to give that a little wipe. And it pulls a bit of it out. Pulls a bit. Pulls a bit. So I think that that's done exactly what I was hoping for. Now I might just have a little play with, I'm just going to come back up here and grab the graduated thing again. And have a little bit of a play with some tones. And let me just see what the impact of that has been if I turn that off and I turn that on, turn that off, and turn that on. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good impact. I'm liking that. I'm just going to pop over here to, actually I'll press escape to close down the local adjustments. Pop to the FX tab. Keep in mind, someone on my last video was asking about this. This is, I want to say that everything in the FX tab is kind of there by virtue of having Film Pack installed. I haven't actually, done a side-by-side to be 100% sure of that, but I'm pretty sure that that's true. Just going to turn on grain. What did I have? I had Velvia. It'll be pretty fine grain, but why not? And I will turn on my frame. And I'll put it on the outside. And that is it. That's my edit. So let's have a look at the overall before and after. Before and after. Before and after. Nice one. And just out of curiosity, super curious how it compares to my first go. Because, you do an edit twice. There's going to be differences for sure. Let's have a peek at this. Yeah, it's a little bit more saturated, isn't it? Little touch. I went a little bit heavier with the saturation through here particularly. Interesting. And I also noticed I didn't fix these rocks on the original. I left the rocks with a little bit too much orange in them, in my opinion. But overall, I think pretty darn similar. Anyway, hopefully you've got something from that. Oh, now before I stop, I did promise that I would just quickly show you what was done to the sunrise since I used it for my poster image. So here is the sunrise image. Let's just have a... So I'll go to color first because that's where I normally start. And let's see, is there anything? Yeah, nothing done there. If I come up, it is using Fuji Astia. I think I did have a look at Velvia for this particular one, but it was too contrasty, too color intense, and then I would have had to do a reasonable, I could bring it back to something like this, but it would have taken more work, so I used that. Again, part of Film Pack, these different digital renderings that I'm using. I have to say that on my system, I feel like these colors are rendering better than they used to in the digital films. It might be that my taste has shifted, but it really feels like there was a tweak under the hood that changed how some of the colors are rendering. And recently, I've really been enjoying using lots of the different film simulations. I use one from Agfa quite a lot as well, an Agfa slide film one that I just love the colors for. But anyway, I digress. What else have I done here? So this one's on 61. I think I did set that manually. If I come across here, I raised the exposure a little bit. I used a bit of spot-weighted smart lighting. Where did I put my spots? Yep, over the important bits of information. Makes sense. Raised my shadows a little bit. Lowered my highlights. A little bit of tone work. Little touch of clear view on there for definition. Little touch of fine contrast. What have I done in the tone curve? Let's see. So on the red channel, I brought down the reds just a little bit in the highlights, just a smidge. Green channel looks like nothing. Blue channel looks like nothing. Wait, green channel does. Oh, I might have pulled the green down. Just it's hard to see. Although let me just I can do it this way. Yes, there we go. I realized I was having trouble seeing it visually, and then I realized that I have another way around that. In that point is at 128 along this scale. And when I look at where it's sitting on 125. So I did just bring the green line down right at the midpoint, down just a hair, which of course is going to introduce just a little bit more magenta into things. And then my Luma curve, I got funky with the Luma curve, raised up a bit in the center. I controlled the highlights so that they didn't go too high. And I raised it up a little bit here in the center and then brought it back down to baseline. Or actually just a touch below baseline there. And then eased it off. So that's just a little tiny, just a single point below baseline there. So eased it off. Basically, I was trying to keep a little bit of separation between this and this over here. Still keep lots of contrast, but have you be able to tell the difference between the two items? So that's a lot of what I was doing with that. And I think that's pretty much it. I think I'll probably have film grain on and don't think I did any local adjustments. Did I? No local adjustments. I'll have on film grain and a frame. Yep, there's the grain. There's the frame. And looks like I straightened it a little bit. It was not straight. And I've brought it to an aspect ratio of 16:10. So, anyway, with that, hopefully you've taken something of value or at least some bit of entertainment. Thanks for watching if you made it this far. With that, I'll say bye for now, and I'll talk again soon.